You know the feeling. You wake up on a Monday morning and before you've had coffee, before you've said a word to anyone, your stomach tightens. Not because the work is hard. You can handle hard work. It's the environment, the politics, the manager who takes credit for everything, the colleague who undermines you in meetings, the culture that rewards the loudest voice and punishes anyone who pushes back. You've tried ignoring it. You've tried being the bigger person. You've tried telling yourself it doesn't matter. It does matter, and the Stoics knew exactly what to do about it. Toxic workplaces are not a modern invention, but they've never been more studied. Gallup's research shows that 60% of people are emotionally detached at work. A further 19% are actively miserable. That's nearly 8 in 10 people either checked out or suffering, at a place they spend a third of their waking lives. The cost isn't just professional. Chronic workplace stress is directly linked to anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, and cardiovascular disease. Your job is not separate from your health. It is part of it. And the most insidious thing about a toxic workplace is this. It doesn't just drain you while you're there. It follows you home. It sits at the dinner table. It keeps you awake at 2 a.m. replaying a conversation that happened 8 hours ago. The standard advice, just quit, set boundaries, talk to HR, works sometimes. Often it doesn't. Sometimes you can't quit yet. Sometimes the toxic person is HR. Sometimes the culture runs so deep that there's no single person to confront. The Stoics didn't have HR departments. They had emperors, Senate conspiracies, political rivals who could have them exiled or executed. Their workplace was the most toxic environment imaginable. And they developed a framework for not just surviving it, but remaining completely undamaged by it. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in the Meditations that sounds like a throwaway line until you really sit with it. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. We quoted this in the last video, but there's a second half that most people never read. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good, and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. Marcus is doing something precise here. He's not excusing bad behavior. He's not saying tolerate everything. He's saying, understand the mechanism. The colleague who undermines you in meetings is not doing it because of you. They're doing it because of their own fear, of irrelevance, of being exposed, of losing ground. The manager who micromanages isn't responding to your competence. They're responding to their own anxiety about control. This matters because it changes your response. When you take toxic behavior personally, you react emotionally, defensively, angrily, or by shrinking. When you understand it as a symptom of someone else's internal state, you can respond strategically. The Stoic move is to ask, what is this person afraid of? Not to feel sorry for them, not to excuse them, but to understand the actual dynamic, because you cannot navigate something you don't understand. A manager who micromanages is afraid the team will make them look bad. Give them visibility, not independence, and the micromanagement decreases. A colleague who takes credit is afraid they're not enough on their own. Stop sharing work before it's finished. This isn't weakness. It's the most sophisticated form of workplace intelligence there is. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was literally a slave before he was freed, wrote the most direct version of this idea in all of ancient philosophy. Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things. Epictetus had more reason than anyone to be destroyed by his environment. He had no freedom, no rights, no control over anything external. And he became one of the most psychologically free men who ever lived. His framework was ruthless in its simplicity. Nothing outside you has the power to disturb you without your permission. This is not toxic positivity. It's not just think happy thoughts. It's a precise observation about the mechanism of suffering. When a toxic colleague's comment ruins your afternoon, it's not their comment that did it. It's your interpretation of the comment. What it means about you, what it implies, what it predicts. That interpretation is yours. It happened inside you, and it can be examined. The practice Epictetus recommended. Create distance between stimulus and response. When something happens that triggers you, a passive-aggressive email, a dismissive comment in a meeting, credit being taken for your work, before you respond, ask, is this actually a threat to something that matters, or does it only feel that way? Most workplace provocations, examined honestly, are not threats to anything real. They're threats to your ego, your sense of fairness, your image of how things should be. Those are real feelings, but they're not the same as real threats. The gap between what happened and what you make it mean, that gap is where your power lives. Here's the most practical thing the Stoics ever wrote about surviving a bad environment. Seneca, in one of his letters to Lucilius, described what he called inner withdrawal, the ability to be physically present in a place while remaining psychologically sovereign over your inner world. He wrote, retire into yourself as much as you can. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. He wasn't telling Lucilius to quit his job or flee Rome. He was describing a mental posture, the ability to be in a toxic environment without being of it. Practically, this looks like three things. First, define your untouchable hours, the hours before work and after work where the job does not exist. No email, no work thoughts, no replaying conversations. Marcus protected his mornings ferociously. That was his time for philosophy for himself before Rome got its hands on him. You need the equivalent. Second, build your inner circle outside the toxic system. Seneca was obsessive about this. The people you spend real time with, outside work, determine your psychological baseline. If everyone in your life is inside the same toxic culture, you have no reference point for what normal looks like. Invest in relationships outside your workplace like your sanity depends on it. It does. Third, decide your exit on your terms, not theirs. The Stoics were not passive. Seneca eventually left Nero's court. Marcus removed advisors who were poisoning his counsel. The Stoic position is not endure forever. It's act from reason, not from reaction. Leave when you've decided to leave, not because they broke you. There's a profound difference between those two exits, and you will feel it. The toxic workplace wants your psychological sovereignty. That is the one thing you are never required to give. So let's go back to where we started. Monday morning. Stomach tight before the day begins. The Stoics would tell you three things. First, the behavior you're absorbing is not about you. It's a symptom of someone else's fear. Understanding that doesn't excuse it, but it removes its power to define you. Second, between what they do and how you respond, there is a gap. That gap is yours. No one can take it. And every time you use it, every time you choose your response instead of just reacting, you get stronger and the environment gets less powerful. Third, inner withdrawal is not surrender. It's strategy. The part of you that the job cannot touch, your values, your relationships, your time before and after the building, that is the part that survives every toxic environment intact. Epictetus was a slave who became free without anyone unlocking the chains. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual sequence of events. And if he could do that, you can handle your manager. If this landed, subscribe. Every week, one problem that's costing people something real, and the ancient answer that still works. They had more time to think than we do. We might as well use it.